Live.
We are. I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today, Keeping Content Health in Check. Or as I like to say, and I tried to change the title of this, I kind of snuck it in without Robin knowing. If you don't keep your content health in check, you should just have it simply walk to the light, because we know what happens when you don't have healthy content. So just to start off, let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. I just want to let everybody know that this e-seminar, this webinar, is being recorded, and this recording is going to be made available pretty much right after we finish. You'll be able to get to this recording by going to our web page, Acrolinx's main web page, going to the webinar portion of the page. It's where you actually registered for this e-seminar if you're live, if you're here. If not, you'll be able to go there at the bottom and you'll see the link to the recording. I was also asked by our marketing director, Robin, to tell everybody that she'll be sending out an email letting everybody know where this recording is. So it will be made available. You don't have to write everything down. You'll be getting a link to that recording. Also, I wanted to let you know that you can ask questions at any time during this presentation. Just feel free to write it down in the question and answer pod. We'll get to those questions at the end of the session. We'll leave ourselves a little bit of time to be able to cover that. While we're presenting, feel free to type into the chat window if you want to talk to other attendees. Feel free. If you're having issues at all technically, feel free to put it into the chat. Robin will be monitoring that, and we'll take care of any issues that may pop up. We're going to leave ourselves some time for a brief look at a couple of automation tools. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to hear about some strategies on how you can keep your content healthy, and then we'll show some automation tools on how we can automate that whole process and make it easier for you. And as I said, we have the question and answer period at the end of the session. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Tom Aldis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Operations for Acrolinx. Prior to coming to Acrolinx, I was the Director of the TechCom business and evangelism at Adobe. And prior to going to Adobe, I was the managing partner for a document consulting company for 20 years. So we worked on a lot of things like converting content from unstructured to XML, implementing CMSs, and specializing data. I did a lot of public speaking, still do a lot of public speaking, so maybe we've met in the past, or hopefully we meet in the future. I wanted to give you some of my contact information. We'll have a slide at the very end that shows a deeper list of all of our contact information, both Jason, our guest speaker, and my contact information. But feel free to jot down my blog, or my Twitter account, or LinkedIn. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest speaker today, Jason Kaufman. He's the president and founder of Arivo. For over 15 years, Jason has helped global enterprises implement knowledge programs, systems, and best practices to reduce support costs, improve overall customer experience, and drive online support success. Jason founded Arivo with the mission to optimize support content to enhance customer and user experiences. So if you've ever watched Jerry Maguire and the whole mission statement, well, that's his mission statement, and he's been doing it for 15 years. He has a broad experience in developing processes and practices for facilitating the successful flow of content-based information within companies and their customers, and also gauging the overall success of the content initiatives. He has worked with global companies such as T-Mobile, Expedia, Dell, Disney, AT&T, and in fact, he currently has teams of content quality analysts helping improvement right in those organizations through online support. So he's a very large support provider also for these particular large customers and others also. Jason's an active member of the Consortium for Service Innovation and is an advocate for their Knowledge Center support methodology. He has recently been a judge for the 2013 edition of the Association of Support Professionals, the year's top 10 web support sites, and his company has recently been named one of the companies that matter in knowledge management by KM World magazine. Jason is passionate for optimizing content processes and implementation of practices that lead to improved user experience. And I will leave the rest to Jason. Jason, I'm looking forward to your presentation on how you can help us keep our content healthy. So over to you, Jason.
Wow, thanks very much, Tom. It's very much a pleasure to be able to address this group today. I'm a big fan of Acrolinks, big fan of what you guys do, and definitely we play in the same space. But yeah, so today I'm going to help talk a little bit about keeping content health in check. It's really about measurement, being sure that you guys are able to define what healthy content means to you, and also measuring that and tracking to ensure that you're moving the needle there. So we're also going to talk about content utility. So a part of healthy content is making sure that it's valid and it's valuable to your audience. We're going to look at ways of actually tracking and improving that overall content health. So one of the big challenges that I think we all face is that the industry is in flux. Our team is constantly changing. Our systems change as well. And managing that change from a governance perspective and a guidelines and best practices perspective is sometimes difficult. The handoffs between those individuals and teams aren't always there and as formal maybe as they need to be. So some of the impacts of that, of course, it impacts the overall value of the content, the validity of that content, and the overall health. Guidelines can sometimes be lost in the shuffle. Style guides may be kept in cabinets or drawers or printed out. New content, as a result, is often layered on top of old content. It's this layering effect where relevancy begins to suffer. It moves down in within the system itself. It kind of becomes buried, and often you have the newer content on top of that. And so what can happen is a lot of duplicative information and often conflicting information as well. So the perception really is that the software is failing or that the content management system is failing, when a big part of that, and in reality, it's the overall content program and the governance and management of that content within those systems that really needs to be overhauled and paid attention to. So some elements of a strong content management program, having a steering committee that's really going to help facilitate that ongoing dialogue from stakeholders across your organization that really represent the customer experience and the experience of your audience or user experience, that can talk in terms of your mission statement. What is that site supposed to be doing for that audience? What are the principles, those uncompromisable requirements that must be met in that system on an ongoing basis? Having those to continually go back to is going to help steer that that site or portal in the right direction. Having guidelines that support your mission statement and principles is going to help you create checklists and help ensure that people within that process know exactly what they're accountable for and are able to communicate in those terms. It's going to help with reducing the duplication of effort between those team members, and it's going to help with some of the conflict that sometimes arises from people thinking that somebody else is actually doing something that maybe they're not. Also having those checklists and guidelines, over time, you're going to be able to start to track, first baseline, and then track and trend improvements in the overall health and quality of your content. And that's going to be really important, of course, to establish where you're at today and where you want to go. Having that mission and vision for that site is going to help you optimize that. And it's going to help ensure that you're going to need to formalize plans to really ensure that communications, training, and coaching is focused on the areas of greatest return. So when you're performing checklist reviews and baselining the health of your content, you're going to be able to focus in those areas that matter the most. In all of those statistics and that review data is going to help inform your dialogue so that you can make sounder business decisions when it comes to where to spend your time, where to allocate resources to make sure that you are moving in the direction you need to move for that site. maybe these aren't all of the elements that come into play, but these are definitely some major ones with which you can move your business forward. So as far as healthy content goes, it's important to have a definition of that for your company, for your team, and for the site. So a sample or example definition here is one that we use, and that's really healthy content is valid, useful, clear, timely, and consistent information that's easily accessible by the intended audience via the most intuitive channels possible, or channel possible. So that really includes a lot. It encompasses a lot. And some of these may be things that maybe aren't as important to you or your audience, and there may be other things that you'd want to include in your own definition. But these are some pretty key points that if you didn't have valid content, it's not healthy. If it wasn't useful, it's not healthy. So there are a number of things here to consider. And as you do that, part of that dialogue of that steering committee and part of that dialogue from your teams should really be around what valid content means to you and to your company. What does it mean to be valid? Who is responsible and accountable for making sure it is valid? Do they know that they're accountable for that? Those are discussions that sometimes don't happen and really, really should. Clarity. What does it mean to be clear? What audience are we writing to? Timeliness. Is it information that's relevant today? When does it need to go out? Did it need to go out last week when we launched the product or service? So making sure that information and the process supports the delivery of that timely information. Consistency as well, making sure that the terms are being used consistently, templates are being used consistently, even formatting. So clarity and consistency are actually two things that I found Acrolinks really helps with there. It's a very strong component of that overall health of your site, and it really gives you some automated ways of formalizing what clarity means to you and what consistency means to you in your content. Ease of access, making sure that individuals can access the information they need. It sounds simple, but when you've got a lot of content out there, some of it can cross over to different audiences, can be presented in different sites or portals, it may appear differently in search. Really making sure that that content fits into the mission of the site or the portal that it's being delivered in. And so that's something that should be top of mind when something's being authored. Which site and which audience, of course, is it being authored for? Where is it going to be delivered? Does it fit within the mission of that site and the guidelines for that site? So those are some things to consider, and defining those and actually coming up with others that really fit your environment is going to be very important. This healthy content could be something different for each and every one of our companies. So I want to talk a little bit about measurement. So measuring article quality. When we say article, it can mean documents, it can mean content, it can mean Word, PDF, doesn't matter. In this case, we're calling it article. But what I'd really recommend is once you have those guidelines in place and your checklists in place and those definitions of what healthy content means, formalizing a project where you can have people comb through even a sample of the content on your site to really determine what is the baseline, what is the health today, where are our opportunities for improvement. That's going to help you establish that initial article quality baseline. So you'll know and now be able to track and measure how much progress you've made towards achieving your definition of healthy content. So I'm actually going to demo for you quickly. Tom mentioned some automation tools. What I would say is Knowledge AQ is a product that we've developed, that we use ourselves as part of providing our services, that helps us ensure that we're hitting each of these guidelines and each of these best practices on all of the content that we touch, whether that's for ourselves or for other clients or customers, or enabling them to use the software itself to help their own programs. It's a system that helps deliver that consistent application of these best practices given your definition of content quality health. So I'm actually going to, in this case, drop a Word document in here. This could be a hyperlink. This could be a link to a knowledge base article, PDF. It doesn't matter. And you can select the checklist that applies for this stage of the process for this type of document. So you may have multiple individuals that are participating in your content process, each of which may have one or more checklists that they might apply. In this case, I'm going to select the Article Quality Index 5.1 checklist. All of these checklists are customizable. You can make them whatever you want. And in this case, it's going to open up this Word document here. If this were part of a review process that included acrolinks, you can actually, and Tom, I think is going to demo some of this as well, but you can actually run an acrolinks check alongside the Knowledge AQ checklist. So part of the checklist here is going to help remind people and ensure that they need to actually run that acrolinks check for clarity in this case. If they've never done it before or don't know how, there's an information drop down here that actually describes how to perform a check. If you haven't installed it, here's how to install it. So it links over to that. So there's really, it's really going to help provide them all the tools they need in order to perform this check accurately. If they need more information on how to actually do the check, they can click here as well. So all of these are customizable for your company. You can go in and create and include as much guideline information as you'd like. You might even include the principles in the mission statement and the areas that this guideline or this checklist items helps support to really give context to that review. You might have one person performing all the reviews for your company that might want to provide feedback to other individuals who contribute. So in this case, they can do a peer review, and they can select the name of the individual that they're actually reviewing the contribution for. What's great about that is at the end of this review, you can actually send them feedback via email. So they don't have to have access to Knowledge AQ in order to get the benefit of that review. That's going to help them correct their contributions going forward. It's going to give them an opportunity to have dialogue around what it means, what the guidelines mean, and what they're accountable to. All of that helps support that healthy program and ultimately healthy content. So the reviewer would go through and actually check each of these items to make sure that things are being done appropriately in alignment with the guidelines. One thing we talked about was that layering effect. So a check that I'd recommend is having something in here that says, hey, go and do a check for duplicates. Do a search out there with some of the same key terms or even against the title to make sure maybe there aren't other documents that already cover this that can just be updated. Doing that time and time again is going to help weed out some of the content and prevent some of that layering that can really kind of cloud up that knowledge base or document base. So I'm not going to go through each of these, but what I would say is if there is a finding here, you can flag that item, enter in any comments that you would want to communicate back to somebody. You may even indicate that it's something that you fixed. So not only did you find it, but it's something that you fixed as well. So at the end of this, you can actually save and submit it. A copy of the review results are sent to another individual, whoever you're reviewing there. And in this case, I'm going to, forgive my scrolling around here, but I'm going to save and submit this checklist. And that's going to do a couple of things. It's going to send that email, and it's also going to take me over to this task in my work list. I can mark that as completed and submit that, and it's no longer in my work list. So this is just a way to manage some of the tasks, review tasks, that happen outside of or around your content management system or knowledge management system. It doesn't depend or rely on the workflow that's embedded there for you to perform reviews and provide that kind of feedback. So ultimately, in presenting and completing those checklist items, you begin to collect data. And that data is what helps drive that overall quality index. And it's going to also help you identify areas of needed improvement, whether they're checklist items that roll up to clarity, tagging or metadata, audience, some of those things that you can't systematically check, that you can't necessarily script. These are human elements. This is where you need eyes on the page, eyes on the document to determine whether or not it really meets your standard for health. So this is going to help inform content cleanup projects. It's going to help you understand the best way to systematically approach the opportunities and to assign resources to fix those items within your content. Whether you've got dozens or hundreds or thousands of documents out there, you can get a quick understanding of what it is you need to fix. So another area of content health, aside from the quality index itself, is the concept of utility. Is it something that's actually useful? Is it valid, and is it valuable? Those are the two questions that we really need to ask when we're reviewing content. Is it valid? Is it useful? So what you can do is actually create a project whereby you can identify a list of documents that need to be reviewed with subject matter experts, perhaps in different areas of your business or in your department. And you can assign them these tasks within Knowledge AQ where they pull open the document, the checklist automatically opens up, and it gives them the opportunity to input their feedback and to indicate whether or not it's valid information and whether it's useful. So one thing this helps prevent is sort of that concept of going down rabbit holes. The tendency, and I think it's human nature to some degree, is to fix something the second you find it. So as a subject matter expert, and I've done this as well, when you're looking at a document and you're reading through it and you find something that needs to be fixed, the tendency is to just go and do it. Well, what that can often lead to is other documents that are being linked to, and before you know it, you've got 20 documents that you're overhauling and rewriting from scratch because, oh my gosh, what were these doing out there? Well, what this can do is help that subject matter expert just quickly look at it, document what it is needs to be fixed or changed, and move on to the next. What that ultimately does is gives you very valuable data. It's going to help establish that utility index. So you can see which quadrant your content really resides in. Is it useful and valid? Of course, we want that upper right-hand quadrant there. Is it not useful and not valid? Is it useful but not valid? So you understand the concept here. Those items that are not very useful and invalid are definite candidates for archival. You want to take those and put those on the back burner. Maybe you keep them searchable, but you don't want those showing up necessarily in the search results and kind of misinforming your audience. So those items that are useful but are not valid would be candidates for a cleanup project where you may have your subject matter experts now go through that content and update it based on their findings. And all of that data can be presented back to them, and they can now go in there and systematically update that content. So they're focusing on the areas of greatest return. And then there are also those items that are valid that maybe aren't very useful. So those would need to be looked at as well to decide whether or not it's worth making, refining those and spending time on those, but they're not very useful to your audience there. They may be candidates for archival. So ultimately, you want to get in that upper quadrant where it's both useful and valid content, and ultimately want to move the needle on that. So this is a project or an analysis that you can do maybe monthly, maybe quarterly on a sample of your content, and make sure that you're moving the needle and you're moving things up to that optimal quadrant there, and you can actually track the gains that you're receiving there as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the archival process and what I call the threshold. It's as important as what's out there as what's not out there. So based on your users and content types and usage stats, you really want to put together a formula that represents your content and the opportunities for you to archive content. It's one thing to determine whether or not it's useful and valid based on a subject matter expert standpoint, but if you've got data and reporting around how that content's being used or not used, you can start to set those thresholds yourself and put that formula together. And so some items that you might consider is, when was it created? Is it 3 years old? Has it not been viewed in the last 6 months? And you can play with those numbers and see what kind of reports come up and start to look at that content given what you believe is healthy content for that site. You can look at the average number of views for a certain time period. You can look at user ratings as well, if your system allows for that. Perhaps the threshold might be 20% user satisfaction or lower within the last 3 months. And you may flag some of that content as well and just revisit those numbers again. So what I'm suggesting here is not necessarily that there's a magic number that you should, by default, systematically archive things. What I am suggesting is that you look at the content that fits within these thresholds and discern for yourselves whether or not it's something that maybe just requires an update. Maybe it's something that's been miscategorized or tagged inappropriately. Those things, of course, can keep it from being viewed. You might also find, of course, that it needs to be updated or revised. So you can make those changes to those documents and then revisit these numbers again and see if it still meets that threshold. If it does, then it's something you can archive with confidence. So one other thing that I think might be human nature to some degree, because the teams are changing, guidelines are changing, companies changing, all of this change, sometimes people can be afraid of, quote unquote, deleting something. The misconception about archival is that something's being deleted. It's going to disappear. What I definitely recommend is making sure the content's still accessible or that there's a process for accessing that if something is needed out there down the road. But what I do is really message to people and inform people that it's okay. It's okay to archive something. It's not going to go away. You're not going to be reprimanded. But it absolutely helps to have these thresholds here so that everybody's working off the same concept. So ultimately, what do we want from healthy content? We want people coming back. We want to help build their trust. We want them to participate in the process because they know what it means to participate from their role within the business. We want to increase awareness of what that content is for, what that site is delivering, what type of information is out there, when should you look. All of that's part of an awareness campaign to really market that site and make sure people know what's there. One of the challenges is often, if we have a content repository that does have layers upon layers of information out there, is people don't know necessarily where to look for what. And that's not going to keep them coming back. It's going to really impact that overall trust. It's going to impact the participation in that. But when you're defining that as part of your mission and making people aware of what's out there and what's not out there, that's going to help increase that satisfaction with that site. So, of course, improving the overall utility, putting these checks and balances in place, making sure that guidelines are clear and concise and communicated, having that mission, all of that is going to, over time, help improve the utility of that site. And again, it's going to help make it more sticky. So I showed you some of KnowledgeAQ, kind of in the content process there. It is going to help improve your overall content health. It's going to help keep your teams aligned. It's going to help provide real-time feedback to those people that are participating in the process so they know what it is they're being accountable to and that they can change behavior to make sure that they're hitting the mark. And also help manage some of those cleanup projects that it helps identify. So you can, again, systematically go through and attack content and bring it up to your most current guidelines and that vision for your site as quickly as possible without having to necessarily boil the ocean. We make content beautiful. That really is what our company is all about. KnowledgeAQ is a tool that we use when providing our services, but it's also a tool that we make available to our customers for them to use themselves. But what we do is content strategy consulting. We perform and can provide health checks where we'll go in and assess your content and help you assess your content based on some of the criteria and standards that we talked about. We'll also help do the work. If your team's overloaded, you need some extra help going in and refining that content, given your guidelines, we can go through and apply these checklists and make sure things are in the right templates, tagged appropriately, spell checked, Acrolinks has been run, and so on. We can do that for you. And we also help with managing those overall content projects, those projects that need to happen sort of around or outside of the content system itself or the knowledge base itself. We can help manage that so that your team can go through and more efficiently and effectively attack that work. So I really wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to discuss this topic with you today. I hope you guys have a lot of questions at the end. I wanted to turn it back over to Tom, and thank you very much.
All right, Jason, great job. I really do like the fact that there's a couple of things. I mean, I wanted to thank you for providing, these content health strategies and best practices in total. But I like how your presentation started off with, you can't manage what you don't measure. I truly believe that, and that's something that's been extremely difficult in the past, being able to measure things. There's a lot of things that can be measured, like how much content you created. That's something that you can measure. How much content that you've changed, that can be measured. But when you're talking about, quality and optimization, that's a hard thing to measure unless you automate it. So having automation tools to be able to help you make sure that you go through these procedures is extremely important. That's why I like your checklist application, Knowledge AQ. I think it's a great application. Also, I understand that consulting and services is part of your business. So when you went ahead and you gave us the elements for a strong content management program and you walked us through that, I know you were giving away some of your product, but the interesting thing, if you take a look at it, that might be the baseline, but basically what you do is you'll customize that approach for individual organizations to make sure that content is healthy. In past conversations, you talked about how SEO is such a big deal, and being able to drop in keywords at the right location and measuring that is extremely important. Acrolinks is aligned with that. And we have a new module that allows you to bring that whole search engine optimization piece to the front of the workflow. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. You also mentioned how consistency is something that's extremely important. Being able to have a consistency against your content. Automation tools make that easier to do. You can train people and keep it on the honor system, but being able to automate those things are really good. An article quality baseline, and being able to establish that baseline is really about being able to measure and report. So that's important. I like how you throw out this boil the ocean. I'm going to be using that, Jason, moving forward. I like that, boil the ocean. You can't boil the ocean. Don't do that. So I like that. I also like the definition that you had for healthy content as valid, useful, clear, timely, and consistent information that's easily accessible to intended audiences. We call that people ready. So basically you're creating content that resonates with the intended audience. So if you're writing content for someone sitting at their kitchen table and they're installing a wireless router, home router, you're going to be communicating with them a little differently. It's going to be a little more personal, maybe have you in it quite a bit. But if you're actually communicating with someone who's installing a very advanced router for an enterprise, it's probably going to be a systems administrator, and he doesn't want you talking about you. This is a whole different style itself behind that. So really making it people ready or writing for your intended audiences is really important. But let me tell you a little bit about how Acrolinks can help you keep your content health in check. Where we play. But before I do that, I wanted to throw up my NASCAR slide. I like to call this a NASCAR slide, all these little logos that we have. These are our customers, a sampling of some of our customers. Some big names, you'll see Adobe and Autodesk and Oracle and Cisco and various, and Siemens, different industries across the board. If it's software or medical or industrial or engineering, they're large customers. We do business with large and small. We've thrown the larger ones up here. but different industries across the board. These are just general industries. But the common thread that you'll find with all of our customers here is that they all value content as a business asset. And that business asset can be tied to things like revenue and other important matrices that are really something that needs to be stressed within these organizations. So they value content as a business asset, but they didn't always have that. I mean, some of them sure do. They come in, they say we understand that content is a business asset. We need to manage it. We need to optimize it. We need to make sure that the quality is right, and we need to be able to enhance that quality and track it over time. But others, didn't come at it that way until they implemented Acrolinx and were given the tools to be able to do that in an automated fashion, and then suddenly that became important, and then the people who create the content became more important to the organization. So that's the upside of actually implementing something like Acrolinx. You become more important to the organization, you can find more funds. But basically, if you take a look at Acrolinx, we do some checking, right? So basically what we can do is we do spell check and grammar check, and a lot of the other authoring tools do that type of thing. But what we do is we refine those checks. So when it comes to spelling, you're not faced with 20 different misspell words. You may have maybe 20 different possible solutions to a misspell word. Instead, you may have 3. So we slim down the choice. Grammar more refined. We also provide style checking, and we like to call it as tone of voice. So are you writing to the person who's installing that wireless router on their kitchen table, or are you talking to someone that is working in an enterprise and a systems administrator, or is it a marketing department, or is it a marketing message that you're trying to do? Basically, you define your tone of voice, and then you can actually put together style rules with our linguistics engine and then be able to apply that against your content. We can also check your terminology and make sure that you're using the correct terminology and not using terminology that you don't want to use. And as Jason talked about earlier about search engine optimization being such a big deal, we have a module to be able to help you be able to fix that broken workflow. And I say that's a broken workflow because I think it's really been duct taped together, where basically keywords have been dropped in post-publish, so it's in the wrong part of the workflow. It's at the back end of the workflow. And what happens, when you make changes to the core content? Well, then basically you're going to have to actually drop those keywords in again, or what you do is you implement a very expensive solution to try to manage that post-process keyword placement. The real place where this should be done is really with the author in the original authoring environment, be it a subject matter expert or just the authors that are fixing up the content before publish. That's what we do. We have a search engine optimization piece that doesn't just do the checking. We help you with the search engine optimization. So if you really boil it down, there's really a few different things that we can, you can say, hey, core competency, what we do to make a difference within your organization and make your content healthy. We provide immediate feedback to the authors. So basically you set the rules, and basically it might be some content style guide that you've provided as an editor maybe. And basically, instead of just putting them through training and saying, hey, write this way for this intended audience, which is very difficult to do and apply against different audiences, we have a rule set. We have this linguistics artificial intelligence engine that we run, and you can place these rule sets in. And basically, besides just the terminology checks and the spell check and the grammar, basically what you do is you run this check and you've got this immediate feedback to the author. And what that does is it trains them over time. So you're building their skills. So it's a constant training reinforcement. So maybe you put them through this training. So training departments really like Acrolinx because it constantly reinforces what they have done in the classroom, building up skills. And then reporting in Matrix, basically what we're able to do is we're able to allow you to run checks, based for style, tone of voice, and all the other checks that we have against your repository of information. So your corpus of content, you can run across that, and you have reports and baseline. As Jason talked about, you're going to establish a baseline, your article quality baseline. Well, we can do that across all of your content, and we have some really interesting reports. And now what used to be considered just a art form this content creation, it was an art form, is now something that can be measured and enhanced. We also have this reporting for individuals, individual documents that are created, so the authors can actually see the reports as they're creating their content, as they want to run the Acrolinks against them. So basically, if you take a look, Acrolinks is a server-based product. Basically, all these different groups, they may have their separate style guides, their separate terminology, but we can run it through the Acrolinks server and basically communicate back to their authoring environments. Whatever authoring environment that they're working on, we have a solution for that. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. And that content goes directly to the customer. And the customer now is using content more than ever to make purchasing decisions. Sometimes they actually will go to a website and download a user guide because they want to know what that user experience is going to be before they purchase. So is it important to have technical content that's absolutely easy to read and follow and makes it easy to use? Absolutely. From a marketing perspective, having a clear message brand and keeping your brand strong, extremely important. And what you want to do is you want to make it people ready. So if you're communicating with different groups, you want to communicate in a way they'll understand. The next thing that we do also is search ready, that search engine optimization. I talked to you about putting the keywords at the beginning of the workflow. That's what we do. And global ready, basically the way that you create your content makes a huge difference in translation costs. Language translation is an expensive thing to do, but what it does is it dramatically opens up markets. So the more languages you can support, the bigger your potential audience for your customers for your product. And what we do, and that's an expensive process to do that, so what we do is we help you lower your translation costs. So we believe that healthy content really speaks with one voice. And what we mean by that is that when you may have hundreds or thousands or even maybe 2 or 3 authors, but what you want to do is at the end of the process, you want the consumer of your content to believe that it was created by one individual. It might have a different style, but you really want it to look like it came from one voice. And that's what we do, and we help it in an automated fashion. So the bottom line is we're a server-based product. We have a server that has our linguistics engine, this artificial intelligence, and then we communicate to various different authoring environments. And those authoring environments, it could be something like a Word or a Frame or an Oxygen or other authoring environments, but it's also marketing content management systems like CQ. But we'll look at a list of those different clients that we support. Keyword placement, the search engine optimization, extremely important today. It's, we have a real fix for a real problem today where keywords are being placed at the end of the workflow. It's been duct taped together. We bring it to the front of the whole process. I can't say enough about reporting and metrics. To be able to measure content quality means that now you can manage it. And if you're a manager of a department or maybe you're a C-level manager, basically what you want to do is you want to manage against matrix. So you can see that there's improvement over time. So you set these goals, you write the style guides, you train the people, you have content being created. But what you want to do is show improvement over time. So I find that extremely important in situations where maybe even content, it moves. Over the years, I've been in this industry forever. I've experienced, the movement from TROF to FrameMaker, or, FrameMaker unstructured to XML, and putting content into a content management system. So the question is, when should we optimize this content? Because we really thought that content really was something that was more of an art form. It wasn't something that we could easily, automate the creation of. So we did it. What we did was we made changes to the plumbing. Converting everything to XML, having an XML editor, creating a content, having a content management system, bringing the content in there. We created these workflows for the plumbing, but the content itself, for the longest time we thought that you had to just train people and then it was on the honor system. There was no real automation. Well, Acrolinks really changes that. We give you the ability to be able to automate that piece of it all, and so doesn't Knowledge AQ with its checklist. So let me just show you a little something about Acrolinx. It's not going to be a full demonstration because we don't have time for that. A full demonstration would take about an hour, and our product evangelist, Allison Hepburn, would be more than happy to show you a full implementation of our system and give you a demo on the authoring environment that you're interested. What I'm going to show you is how Acrolinx works with, in this case, Word. But like I said, we work with multiple different authoring environments. So why don't we just take a look at a quick little list here. We have something called a batch checker, and the batch checker gives you the ability to take a look at your full body of work and then get error reports on how your content quality stands. So, if you're really starting to look at content quality now, or you're going to be converting to, some other format like XML, well, basically you want to get your content up to speed and have it optimized for quality before you make that conversion. Well, if I was someone who was funding that effort, I would want to be able to have measurable results. So Acrolinx is one of those things where you can implement it easy, the return on investment is fast, and you can prove out success. And Batch Checker is one of those ways where we can just check all your content, just have that baseline, show where your content quality is, and you can show the improvement over time. We have other things, automation with a command line checker. We have a desktop checker, so if we don't support an environment that you're using today, if you have maybe a customized application that you created, we have a thing called desktop checker. Lower right hand corner, you'll see a little icon here. Basically, we can turn that on. Anything that you copy into the clipboard can go into our desktop checker. We can apply our check against it. You can make the changes, and then it will automatically be placed back into the application it came from. So that's the ultimate. Doesn't matter which way you're creating your content, we can make that change. And even if you're a Mac user, I have a Mac that I'm using right now. We support Oxygen on the Mac, so you can use Acrolinx on your Macintosh also. But if you take a look at some of the integrations and plugins that we have, Adobe CQ, it's in the marketing content management system and authoring solution. FrameMaker, InDesign, even OpenOffice, that free solution, Arbortext, Epic Editor, CK Editor, Eclipse, XMetal, Lotus Notes, Word, Oxygen, Cerner, another freebie, TinyMCE. So we support quite a few different editing environments directly with the integration that you're going to see in Word, but we also have things that you can do that make it easy for you to be able to even check your websites. So we have a web checker. So basically it's as easy as putting in a URL, and we can sniff through your website, and we could actually grade the content quality based upon things that you find important. We have best practices, and out of the box you can just use a quality check, but you can kind of customize that also to make sure that your terminology is exact, your tone of voice is the way that you want, and we have this web checker that allows you to do that, and then basically you can go back to your core content and make changes to make sure that you improve quality over time. But that's enough of that. Let's take a look at Word. If we take a look at Word, and it could be anything like Frame or Oxygen or XMetal, like I said, doesn't really matter. We have integration, but it's all going to be very similar. If I click on the Review tab, what you'll see, the very first thing that I have to do, and I really just need to do this once and maybe revisit once in a while. So let me just show you how easy it is just to set up Acrolinx in an editing environment. First time, I just basically point to where the server is. I tell Acrolinx what language I'm creating our content. So in this case, it's English. It could have been German. It could have been Chinese. In this case, it's English because that's what I publish. There's a rule set for tone of voice. So if I'm writing a TechPubs document, I can have a tone of voice for that. Maybe I'm creating marketing content. Well, maybe there's a tone of voice for that also. Or ditter content. Or you can create your own rule set. So it isn't something that we're saying that you have to use, well, we're just creating strings. Well, no, you can create your own rule set for the tone of voice. If you have multiple tone of voices that you create, you can create these rule sets, and then we can actually measure against that and help you make those changes to your content so it hits exactly your style guide. So we'd set that rule set, and that's the thing that you may change once in a while. where you go back and say, hey, I'm actually writing marketing content, not tech hub content at this particular point. We can turn on and off things like spelling and grammar and the style, tone of voice. Terms that you shouldn't use, depreciated terms. The other thing that we can do is we have this reuse module. So we have a reuse repository. So basically you can put in phrases and sentences that you want to reuse over and over again. And why would you want to do that? There's a few reasons. It could be about language translation. So basically you've already translated content, and like I said, it's very expensive to do that. So basically what you want to do is reuse the same phrases over and over again if possible. Well, with Acrolinx's linguistic technology, what we're able to do is read the content, understand what you're trying to say, and then make a suggestion on something that's already been approved and maybe converted into multiple languages. The other reason why you might want that is maybe legal content. So if you have some kind of caution or warning, your legal department might have said, you have to phrase this exactly this way, and it could be for very important legal reasons. So we can actually take a look at your content, we read it, we understand it, and we'll make those suggestions. And then you can create term sets, different term sets for different types of documentation. And then what we can do is we can measure your content and tell you to make different suggestions against how to do it. But that's a setup that only happens once. So the basic user, once that's already set, in the course of my day, I write this content. So all I have to do is push one button. See this check? I push it. I mean, just like my iPhone, there's one button. That's all it is with the Acrolinx. Extremely easy. We're communicating with the server, passing the content, and you get this nice little screen that gives you a quality score. So you'll see a quality score here of 45 out of 100. So as Allison Hepburn, our product evangelist, likes to say, think bowling, not golf. Higher number is better than a lower number. So the goal is to hit 100. At 45, we get a sad face. We want a happy face. And we have our traditional score checking too. For those of you who have been using Acrolinx for any amount of time, you'll know that the score checking goes much higher than 100. And basically, what we say is go for green. So we have this whole green, and if you can have more of your content completely green, that's where you want to go. Now, we show things like how many spelling errors and grammar errors there are, but how many style errors, so tone of voice errors, how many reuse opportunities, how many terms that probably should be changed, and we'll make those suggestions. We won't just tell you what the problems are. We'll help you make those changes. Of course, we'll tell you the number of words and sentences. But if you want a quick report, it's as easy as clicking on this little arrow here. We'll pop and open a web browser, whatever you're defaulting to, and you can see, your spelling errors, your grammar errors, what style errors that you have. You can hypertext directly to them. So there's a nice little report. So when I said that individual authors can actually see the reports themselves. This is the report that I was talking about. But basically, if you take a glance at that, all you have to do is hit continue. And what we do is we pop into the document this color coding that identifies opportunities for change to be able to hit exactly your rule set that you've decided on. So basically, this color coding can be modified. It really is customizable. This is what's out of the box. But green out of the box is for style. So basically, will describe is a style issue. I think it's a little more than just a style issue, but we'll talk about that. If you take a look, all I have to do is right-click, and you'll show us, hey, avoid future tense, replace with describes. So we'll tell you what the problem is. Avoid future tense. That's the training part. Describes. So now this document describes the basic steps. Easier to read, easier to translate. There's less words. Save money. Now, pink, terminology. So if we take a look, we right-click on that. It's a terminology issue. In this particular case, this content is going to be translated into multiple different languages. So in the United States, we know what a Phillips head screwdriver is. In other parts of the world, that isn't quite so. So translating Phillips head screwdriver might be difficult for people translating into multiple languages. So in this particular case, the suggestion would be, let's use cross-head screwdriver, because that's something that's easily translated outside of English. Now, if you want to have more information on that, well, that's easy enough to do. All you have to do is just click here, term Phillips head screwdriver. You click on it, and we'll open up that browser window again, and we'll talk to you about why cross-head screwdriver is important and what it is with a nice little picture. You can add comments, so you can actually say, hey, I really need to be able to use Phillips head screwdriver instead of crosshead. And you can also suggest terms too, and there's a workflow for that. so they can go through a review process. But at the end of the day, all I have to do is just click and select. Easy, right? So some of the other things that I wanted to show you real quick is reuse. So I said, we understand what you're trying to say, and then we can make suggestions on what you've approved as a reusable object. So these 4 sentences actually say the same thing, kinda. So basically what Acrolinks can do, if you right-click, you'll see that it's a reuse issue. And basically we can go from see that the following items arrive with your Tailspin package, and there's an approved reusable phrase that says the following items come in your Tailspin package. Now that's been translated into multiple languages. Why retranslate? Let's keep it simple, and it's easier to read. Now these other 3 statements say the same exact thing, kind of, and I say kind of because sometimes it's bad English. So it says, please find these parts in Tailspin shipment. Well, we understand what you were trying to say. So if you have content created by people that maybe they're not very good at creating content, maybe they're subject matter experts, maybe English isn't their primary language. In this particular case, it could be another language like German or Chinese, and maybe that's not their primary language. But basically, we understand because we got the strong linguistics engine, and we know that this is really what you were trying to say is the following items come in a Tailspin shipment. Now, the same thing, different phrasing, always leads us back to the same replacement. Of course, if you had something else that you were trying to say and it matched a different reusable object, we'd actually go off to that. Now, if you take a look at InfiniBand, InfiniBand is camel case. Well, we have that replacement. So that's how easy it is. It really is. So let's go back to the presentation. And what I want to do is I just want to stress the fact that if you have healthy content, you too can have a face of pure accomplishment. So basically, if you use Knowledge AQ and Acrolinks together, that's going to be your face. So let's go take a look at the contact information that I promised, and let's field some quick questions if we have any. Robin, do we have any quick questions? And if you take a look, I'll leave this slide up so you can see our contact information. Feel free to reach out to myself or Jason at any time.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jason. We do have a question here. Somebody's asking, what types of roles would you recommend to include in the steering committee? So, Jason, probably best field that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I definitely recommend going big. Try to get executive level sponsorship or even director level sponsorship from various teams that all represent some component or some ownership of the customer's experience or audience experience. And what you'll find, I believe, and what I've seen is over time, that team should morph. So some of those may delegate responsibility down to members of their team, but what that does is it definitely helps ensure that, that it's important. So making sure that it's top of mind and that they are aware that there's sponsorship from up above. But definitely earlier on, especially when the mission is being put into place, having senior level folks in there in that discussion is going to help. And then over time, that team will change, and you'll find that other people will start to join, and others may kind of go by the wayside. So definitely start big.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. All right, looks like we have time for maybe one more question here. This person is asking, we're moving from unstructured FrameMaker to XML, and we're using a CMS to manage our content. When do you recommend implementing Acrolinks?
Interesting. Yeah, so that's basically what I used to do back in the day before coming to Acrolinks, this whole movement of unstructured to XML, and I have this 7-part series to show you how to do that. But let's face it, it's not the easiest thing to do, moving from unstructured to XML and then implementing this content management system. So a couple of things that come into play. It's expensive to do that. Buying a content management system is not an inexpensive thing, and you've got to show success early on in the project. So basically what you need to do is you got to show that success. So one reason why you'd want to implement Acrolinks early in the process is it's easy to implement, and you can track the successful change of your content from a quality standpoint. And then the other reason is, and this is the reason why I'd actually implement backlinks at the beginning of this whole process, is you want to, optimize your content. You want it to be good content before you convert it, because there's reuse opportunities. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. So it looks like we're at the top of the hour here. So thanks to our audience for joining us today. We hope you all receive value from it. I'm going to send out an email with a link to the recording so that you can access the recording at your convenience, or you can send it off to your colleagues. So thanks again for your participation, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.